I'm gonna make a super to use this repo, dead simple redux. And what I'm gonna do is start at the starter. I'm gonna download that starter, and in this first video of redux. So what that's gonna look like is just everything on a single page. The simplest implementation of redux that I can possibly have been able to dream up. So if you go to the repo, dead simple redux, go to branch O1 starter, you should see a file there or a folder there, and you can open that folder up in VS Code. You should see something kind of like this. And what's in here is just an index.js. Let's take a look at it real quick. On this index.js, I'm going to make my window a little smaller here. In React and React DOM, I've gone ahead and written a background style, which is just a color to fill up the whole background, and then a circle, which is going to be a div that's going to be 50 by 50, and it's going to have absolute positioning and a color, and a border on top of a div. And I've gone ahead and made a stateful component called app, and you can see we're going to render that that circle here at the state. So we're going to bring in X and Y from state. This is just going to be a fixed circle to start with using React DOM. And so this is just, super simple one-page little application. And to run this, what I can do is npm install. And as that's running, I'm going to talk about what we're going to do. So first we're going to, I'm just going to add a event listener, and we're going to update the local state with that. And then in this first video, what I'm going to do is just build a Redux store on this single one-page application. So it's going to be a super simple version of Redux. And the reason I want to do that is just because I think people think Redux partly is so complicated because there's so many different files and you can't see the stuff. You're importing, exporting, and Redux can get really complicated, but it can also be really, really simple. It's just a way to manage data flow in your app and to make sure that when your actions get dispatched from your view, they go to the store, update some data, and that data comes back in. And that means there's one look really good for avoiding bugs in your code. So I'm just going to go ahead and now that that's done installing, I'm going to start this. And we should see just a screen that's going to have a circle. That's the right thing. So that other one was the end of this first video, which I am having to do again because I forgot to turn my microphone on last time. So I'm going to do this as quick, get you out of here in under 20 minutes. All right, so we've got this circle, and what we want to do first of all is to add an event listener. And things like event listeners always want to go in a function called componentedMount, which is available on stateful components. You can also use hooks, obviously. And there's another one called component will unmount, which is where we can remove our event listener. So on component did mount, what I'm going to do is say window.add event listener, and I'm going to do on mouse. Is it on mouse move? Let's see. Oh, it's just going to be mouse move. Yeah. I don't know why it's not giving me my syntax highlighting I want there. Let me just double check my code and make sure I'm not going to lead you astray. Yeah, it's just going to be mouse move. Window.add event listener, mouse move. And what I'm going to do is make a method. And I'm going to use this code here. I'm just going to copy and paste it down here. Remove event. Good. So we're we're not doing anything yet with that. We're going to make this, and what we're going to do is say on mouse move. That's going to be an arrow function, and it's going to take in an E, and it's just very simply going to set the state. It's going to change that X value to client X, and let's change the Y value to client Y. Client X and E dot client and E dot client. Okay. All right, we're not doing too bad. We're following our little ball is following our mouse around because we're updating that value every time we get a mouse move. Make sense? And I'm gonna do one thing here, which is minus half of that circle and half of that circle. So now it's actually on top of the mouse. Well, more or less. Good enough. Now, what I can do also is, yeah, I think that's good enough for now. So we've got an action. It's firing. We're updating our state. And what we want to do for the next step is to actually bring in this stuff here. So I'm going to bring in create, store, and provider from Redux and React Redux. And when I set up this template for you, I went ahead and installed this. So those will have come in alongside React and React DOM and all the other stuff that comes with Create React App. So this is like a Create React App with a little bit extra. And so we've got React Redux and we've got Redux. We use, in order to build a Redux app, we'll use a function called create store, called the provider from React Redux. Now, let's start with the provider, which is going to look like this. Oops. And we'll just make a provider, and we'll put our app inside of our provider. So this is, a component, essentially, right, that is provided by React Redux that allows us around our app. And that provider, which you're going to use a lot in your career as a React developer, gives us access to a store prop. And we can pass in our own store into that store. And if it helps you, we can say my store. So the store is going to take my store. And it's what you'll see most of it. This store, that's this one here. I'm going to say, and I think I'll just go ahead and do all this stuff up here at the top. I'll say const store equals, and hopefully you can already guess how we're going to use create store, which is a function. We're going to use it to create a store. And in order to do that, we need to pass it a reducer. Now, a reducer is also, you guessed it, a function. That's all it is. It's a function that takes in some values and it returns state. And generally, what it will take in is some state and an action. And we can set our state to an initial value, like so. I can say const initial state equals an object that, just like our local state, is going to have an X and a Y and a color. Oh, I don't think our local state has a color. Yeah, right. I was going to do that. So let's get rid of this background color on our circle. Make a color here. And we'll just say, we'll start it out as green. Down here, we need to say circle style, background color is going to be color. And we're going to bring color in. And you can see my code's broken right now because it wants me to put those values in here. So we'll just put 500, 250, purple. Now, initial state is not defined. Initial state. Yeah. So many typos. All right, so now those typos are fixed. We've got our use our store values yet. We're not wiring those into our app yet. But this should compile just fine. And it's just the same as it was, right? Except there we go. Now it's got this green value. Notice it's getting its not from initial state into our, and we can do that like this in component did mount. What we're going to do is say, so we've got our event listener, and now we're going to say store.subscribe. And we're going to pass that function another function. We're always passing functions into functions. And so the more comfortable you get with that, the happier you're going to be. And so we're going to say, we're going to make this value called state, and that's going to be store.getState. So that's going to get the state from our store. And remember, our store is being created by passing in this reducer. This reducer is going to, that's going to be these values that are, if that doesn't make sense, watch this video again from the beginning. Stop it right now and start from the beginning and do it again until that makes sense. If that did make sense, great. Let's continue, and we'll say set state, and we're going to say x equal to state.x, y to state.y, and color to state.color. And you know what? Let's move this circle. So now it's at 500, 250. Let's move it to 250, 500 for the initial value before a mouse move occurs, and that'll help us see a couple of things. 5 is trying to get those values off of state, and you can see it's not. Right? And the reason for that is that those values aren't changing. These values in initial state aren't changing. Store.subscribe sets us up so that when those values do change, a new value for store, and then we're going to call this .setState. And I hope that makes sense. So what we need to do is we need to, and we're also setting the initial state in here. So let's not do that. And now, actually, I think if we do this, we get that. What we're going to do is we're going to move that into Redux and getting those values back from Redux, which is a great way to develop in your thinking, in your career. Sending things through to the store is a much better way to work, especially when you're making bigger applications. So on mouse move, we're going to call the store and dispatch something called an action. And that action is going to be called update mouse position. And it's going to get these two values. And so we're going to pass in as an so we're going to pass in a y property into update mouse position. Now if I do this, it says update mouse position is not defined. Update mouse position is going to be a function I'm going to write. And I'm going to write it right down here. I'm going to say const update mouse position. And we know that's going to take in an X and a Y. We're passing in an object with an X and a Y, so we can destruct, and we can, from update mouse position, return a new object. This is a function that we call it a action, and it's actually an action creator, and it's going to return us two things. It's going to return us an object with two things, two properties. The first property is going to be a property that we can give it, and I'm just going to give it the name update mouse position. And this is, just a good no-brainer thing to generally do, is to, for your actions, give them a name that's the same as the action creator name, but in all caps. It's just a traditional syntax. And the payload is going to have that X and that Y. And the object that's got a type and a payload. And we're going to run that through our reducer. And so for our reducer, what we do is we'll set up a switch that takes in the action and checks for the type. And when the type is update mouse position, then it's going to return a new object for state that's going to have everything on state, and also is going to have an X value of action.payload.x and a Y value of action.payload.y. And then we're going to have a default that will return state. And now we can let's. So we're going to move. We're going to call this, which is going to have an event attached to it with an e.clientX and an e.clientY. We're gonna when onMouseMove happens, we're gonna call a function called dispatch, which is on the store. We'll say store dot to our store. We will dispatch an action creator. This action creator, remember, takes in these values and returns an object. And that action creator is right here. So we call this function, and it returns an and transforms them into an object that has a type and a payload. So when we dispatch this function to the store, we're going to call with dispatch. We're gonna be actually sending in an object. So after we call this function, what that's going to look like is it's going to look like an object that looks like this. So what we're actually doing is we're returning this object, and we're sending this, which is dispatching this. And when we call dispatch, it sends it to our reducer. And that's why when we create store, right? This store here is going to call my reducer. And my reducer is going to pass that in as an action. So my reducer is going to take this state and combine it with this action. So we're going to be able to pull off what's in state and we'll be able to add in the things that are in the action. Make sense? And that's all it is. That's really all it is. Let's see, X and Y not defined. Oh, right. So I would need to change that to be e.clientX. And we could actually do that, I think. e.clientX, e.clientY. And what did we say? Minus 25, right? Let's see. Update mouse position, assigned a value but never used. Okay, so now we're not actually calling update mouse position, but we will in a sec. Oops, X, Y not defined. There we go. And so now notice how it turned purple and it's following the mouse. But let's clean this up a little bit and change this back to our update mouse position action creator, and into that we can pass, and we'll see that's going to work just the same, and we got rid of that error warning. Let's try one more action creator, which will change the color also on the mouse move. And to do that, I'm gonna first make a random color, and that's going to be a hex color. We'll use a little JavaScript, math.random. Oh, we need to say, sorry, math.floor. And we'll say math.random times 166. I always forget this number. I don't know why. I think it's 7. Nah, got it wrong. Good thing I checked. 777.215.2, a string, and that should be a hex number, a hex color. And we'll just call store.dispatch with set new color, and we'll pass in our random color. Now what we need is an action creator called set new colors function, and it's going to just take in a color, and it's going to return type set new color. Oops. Oopsie daisy. There we go. So it's going to have a type of set new color, and it's going to have a payload of color. And you know, this is just another way to say that. JavaScript lets you, if those values are the same, you can just say that. And so now it'll set color to color. And now if I want to use that action in here, or I will add a new case. And we'll say case was that what it was? Set new color? Yeah. Set new color. So when we get that type, instead of returning the new mouse coordinates, we're going to return everything in state. So that'll be the X and Y values, but with a new color. And now what I'm hoping when I go to the browser is we're going to see a new color. Whoops. Set new color is not defined. Set new color is defined. Oh, probably just got a little bit behind itself. Refresh the browser, and there we go. So now every time I move the mouse, I get not only a new position, but a new color. I'm immutably updating my state here. Color. If I just take this out, what do you think will happen? I'm going to obliterate my x and y values, and I should be obliterating my x and y values. Oh, you know what? I'm still... No, I'm not. Should be... Oh, you know what? I think when I call... I'm calling the same. It wouldn't work if I wasn't... If all my things weren't so tightly bound. Anyway... I hope that helps a little bit in understanding the data flow of... This is not how they usually look, right? In the next video, I'm going to take these and break them out into one page. But I hope that it is helpful without having to import and export and all this stuff going around everywhere and every which way. Just a dead simple introduction to how redux functions. Redux functions, right? A action in our view. We dispatch the values generated in that action to our store, updates our state, and then we bring that back into our app. And here we're bringing it back, bring that in using map. All right. And if that didn't make sense, go back, watch it again. Do this, until this part makes sense. Just stay here. And then when this part makes sense, come back in the next video. We'll update this a little bit, and we'll actually add the ability to store circles in our store, right? And use those to leave to sort of make a drawing.